Okay, so moving on to grouped frequency data. What we're going to look at is once again finding the mean, and we're also going to try and locate the median. Okay, so firstly the mean. What we're going to need to do is take a value to represent each of these groups. In between 0 and 5, there's 19 pieces of data, but I don't know if all of those 19 are the number 1, or if all of them are the number 4, or if or there is a mixture of all the different possible values in between 0 and 5. So we're going to make an assumption here. It's quite a fundamental assumption when it comes to this calculation. We are assuming that all of the values there are the midpoint. Okay, I always like to just make a column within the table that I'm already working with. So the midpoint of this first class, 0 to 5, is 2.5. And I'm assuming all of these 19 values are 2.5. The midpoint of the next class, 7.5. The assumption we made for the third class is that they're all 12.5. Carrying on like this, 17.5 and 20.5. Okay, so those blue values are what we'll use to carry on our calculation. Once again, I'm going to call these M for midpoints right now. Once again, the formula for the mean is the sum of all of the values. This time round, it's going to be the midpoint values. I might as well write that as an M. It's going to be the midpoint values multiplied by how many times that occurred, all divided by N. But actually, N is going to be the total frequency. So I'll just rewrite the formula like this, and you may well come across it like this. I don't want you to be confused as to what it's saying. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that calculation. So I'm going to do the midpoint times the frequency for all of these, which means I'm going to have 2.5 times 19, 7.5 times 23, etc. Okay, so we've got all of that, and that's going to be divided by the total frequency, which we get from adding up the frequency column, 75. Okay, and then once again, just all into the calculator. So from there, I get an answer of 9.22. Okay, just a quick sense check. Does this make sense for the data that we have in front of us? So if I look at the data quickly, the largest or the highest frequencies were around here. So I do expect the mean to be around there. If it's a value that tries to represent the whole data set, it should be near where the maximum or the largest frequencies occur. And 9.22 is roughly in that area. It will roughly represent the middle. If I got an answer of 19.22, I'll be a little bit suspicious that I'd potentially made a mistake in my working out. So just be careful to always do a sense check. Does your answer make sense? Okay, so next we were asked to try and identify which interval is going to contain the median. Okay, so once again, we will need to think of this as a complete list. If we'd written this out, there would be 75 digits or 75 values written in a row. Where would we look for the middle value if there were 75 of them? That's what I need you thinking in your head, okay? So once again, n plus 1 divided by 2. This is how we track down where to look. 75 plus 1 divided by 2 equals 38. I'm looking for the 38th piece of data. Which interval is going to contain the 38th piece of data? What is useful to have here is a cumulative frequency. All right, so let's quickly get a cumulative frequency. At the end of the first interval, I've inspected 19 items. At the end of the second interval, I've inspected 42 items. If we continue like this, I have the complete cumulative frequency. Once again, a sense check, 75 was my maximum cumulative frequency, and it is my total frequency. So I'm quickly confident that I've done that correct. Which interval is going to contain the 38th? Well, this first interval contains 19. If I inspect everything in this first interval, 0 to 5, I would have inspected 19 items. I've not come across the median value. All right, so it's not in this interval. The next interval, 5 to 10. By the time I've inspected everything in that interval, I've come up to the 42nd item. If I've made it all the way to the 42nd item, I've gone past the 38th. So the 38th must have been one of the things that I inspected in this interval. So the median lies in this interval here. Okay, and that will be our response. So using the cumulative frequency and the position formula to identify exactly where we should look for the median.